A man who was convicted of a brutal rape of a 13-year-old,
Fucking trash.
sentenced to 40 years, decides, well, you know what? I feel like a woman.
I'm Vera Milo.
What the fuck?
So they transferred him to a women's prison because, what could possibly happen?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this is what's next.
How do you know that you're a man?
How do I know that I'm a, I guess because I got a dick.
Good Wednesday, everyone. Jazz Berganzo here. Another episode of What's Next, your daily. Hope you guys are doing well today. And, of course, as always, it is the countdown to Christmas. Well, this is just the opposite. The joy, the good times, the good feelings, the good tidings, the birth of Christ. Total 180 opposite of this. You have stories like this, and they come across seemingly every day. And you just keep on... You bang your head over and over again. When is it going to stop? When are people going to wake up? But sadly, no, because it's 2022. Well, of course, it'll be 2023 soon, and, the same bullshit will continue. A man sentenced to 40 years in prison for the brutal rape of a 13-year-old decides one day, well, you know what? I feel like a woman. So what does the prison correctional facility do? What do they do? Well, the smart thing will be like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. You're staying in prison. No. We can't have that because, of course, it is 2022. He gets moved to a women's facility because, yeah, you know what? What's the worst can happen? Oh, God. Here we go. This comes out of the Blaze. Man who repeatedly raped 13-year-old girl and took pictures of his assaults transferred to women's prison. Warning of the graphic nature. A man sentenced to serve decades in prison for horrific sexual assaults against a 13-year-old has reportedly been transferred to a women's prison after he began sometimes identifying as a trans. Approximately 20 years ago, Brett David Sonia, who now uses the name Brooke Sonia, of course, met a 13-year-old girl in New Hampshire and convinced her that he would help her launch her modeling career. During the course of his photography sessions with the victim, Sonia began asking for her to take her clothes off and eventually to perform various sexual acts while he continued to snap the pictures. Gee, how convenient. He also took the girl all the way to LA, where he sexually assaulted her again. The accusations against Sonia were so heinous that attorneys had difficulty finding enough jurors who had to stomach the details of the case. In 2005 and 2006, Sonia was convicted in both states of dozens of charges related to child rape, sexual exploitation, and child pornography. He was sentenced to serve a minimum of 22.5 years in prison and a maximum of 40 for the New Hampshire assaults. Once he served the at least minimal sentence, a California court will consider whether to impose the further sentencing for the California assaults, because it's California. Sonia was transferred to a Washington State prison in 2016, approximately a year after he began identifying as trans. Wow. The prison transfer itself is not unusual. States regularly transfer inmates to prisons that might better suit their needs, even when those prisons are located in another state. It's been done before. Sonia was initially placed in various men's prisons in Washington, but according to an exclusive report, he has now been transferred into the Washington Correctional Center for Women because he claimed he feared male aggression at the facility in Airway Heights, a Washington law passed earlier this year now forbids the disclosure of a trans status of the current and former inmates, so it's difficult to confirm whether Sonia has, in fact, been transferred to the women's prison. Gee, how convenient. Again. Quote, I worry about my relative being alone in a restroom and the prison trying to force her to share a cell with a man. The family, Sean's member, and other women's inmates have expressed their fear of a 54-year-old male predator. Sean has also reported that Sonia isn't even trying hard to convince women at the prison that he's one of them. Gee, I wonder why. He was saying that he's both. Identifies as a man sometimes and sometimes as a woman. Sometimes you feel like a nut and sometimes you don't. I know he looks like a regular middle-aged man with glasses. My relatives say he doesn't look trans at all. His mannerisms are so manly, no makeup, no nothing, to suggest that he's a trans. Sean suspects that Sonia may prefer to serve his time in a women's prison for two key reasons. The women's facility is considered to be Camp Cupcake, which has been deemed with fewer restrictions than male facilities, and of course, the women's prison provides easy access to vulnerable women, but he wouldn't do that. He's one of you. These incarcerated women, excuse me, have profound trauma histories, mostly at the hands of men. And my family member explains the Washington Department of Corrections is saying that they don't matter, and it's okay to re-victimize them and cause them further trauma. They're saying that it doesn't matter. Sean has also repeatedly furnished the report with a list of 8 biological males, 8 dudes convicted of violent crimes who are currently housed in the women's prison. So this clown, Sonia, is not the first one. There are 8 others. And of course, the pretense is that they suffer from transgenderism because, again, convenience. Those men include serial killer, a man convicted of raping and murdering a woman in 2007. Sean claimed that the sexual encounters between male and female inmates at the women's prison are common. They are having some very aggressive men coming in here, Sean insisted, about the women's prison, and all of them are having sex with the women. At least one woman is terrified and uses a buddy system to visit the bathroom, Sean claimed. She's always bringing a friend. A search for Brett Sonia, or Brooke Sonia, in the Washington Department of Corrections website did not yield any results. Again, I wonder why. He's still listed at the New Hampshire DOC website, though his location is listed as non-New Hampshire DOC facility. Sometimes in 2021, dozens of demonstrators gathered. Sometime in 2021, dozens of demonstrators gathered near the women's prison to protest housing male inmates in the prison. Of course, the following video shows various women speaking out against this practice, and we'll show you a little bit.
What is happening at the state level is happening at the federal level, where President Biden has signed a series of executive orders requiring federal agencies to interpret the word sex to mean so-called gender identity. It is happening all across the country. To the best of our knowledge, 49 states, plus the District of Columbia, allow men to be housed in women's prisons on the basis of their so-called gender identity.
My thoughts. Not surprising, because President Dementia, within days of taking office, signed a number of executive orders in protecting pronouns and telling women to go for themselves. Yeah. And of course, as we all know, that he has a bevy of inclusionary, diverse people, Dr. Monkeypox, Sam Brinton, running around as a woman who stole luggage and of course now is in prison, to a woman who's black Lebanese, and we think she has a badge as spokeswoman. And of course, the Rear Admiral himself, Dick Levine. So none of this surprises me at all. But what is most shocking is that when you have such brutal details about the most brutal incidents regarding these men against women, and then you do the worst thing possible. You put them in prison with other women because, I feel like a trans. This is how fucked up this society is. And I'm glad for these women that are protesting. But at the same time, these people need to wake up and get these dudes out of there. Because if you thought what they committed to get in there was bad, what's going on in these women's prisons are just as bad or even worse. And with that being said, I'm Jazz Berganzo. This is What's Next. Want to see more just like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.